Welcome to the EQ Fit podcast. Our mission is to equip people to prosper in every aspect of their life. Whether you're at home or in the workplace, we explore practical ways of improving success, satisfaction, finding balance, and building enjoyable and beneficial relationships. Thank you for joining us. For the foreseeable future, I want us to focus in and explore what is emotional intelligence, what is the role of it. There's so much information out there, and some of it is very good and some of it is not so great. So I'm going to take the time to pull from highly respected people in this area of focus and bring insights to you specifically about what is emotional intelligence, why is it important, what does it look like, and I'm going to break it down. So this is going to take us some time, over weeks, to break this down, look at it, but then how does it apply to our lives? And if we want to grow these skills, what does that look like? So that's our journey for the next several weeks, is to explore the role of emotional intelligence really in every aspect of our lives. Now, EI is emotional intelligence. So if I say EI, that is emotional intelligence. And if I say EQ, that is emotional quotient, which is the measure of emotional intelligence. So just to get that kind of cleaned up right up front. Now, when it first came out, emotional intelligence was thought of as another fad that would kind of die down after a while. Now, this is 30, 40 years ago. I mean, even as much as 50 or 60 years ago with some of the original research. But the reality is nothing could be further from the truth. But why? Why is emotional intelligence so important? Well, instead of listening to me tell you, I want to read you some quotes from some highly respected people that have done the research, that work in this area all the time. And I want to answer that question of not only why is it important, but what's in it for you? We all ask that question. If I'm going to spend some time listening to something, increasing or growing in a given area, what's in it for me? Well, we're going to try and answer that today, and then in the following weeks, we'll go deeper into that. Let me read you some of these quotes. The first one is by Robert Cooper, PhD. Emotional intelligence is the ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply the power and the acumen of emotions as a source of human energy, information, connection, and influence. So that's a very insightful quote. And basically what he's saying is it's going to impact our energy, the information and how we access it in our brains, how we connect with others, and how we influence others. That's a big part of our lives, whether it's personal life or at work. So what did Dale Carnegie say about emotional intelligence? Well, it wasn't necessarily specifically emotional intelligence, but listen to this quote. When dealing with people, remember you're not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures of emotion. I think that was very, very insightful on his part. Now, here's a quote from the Center for Creative Leadership, very well-known leadership group. 75% of careers are derailed for reasons related to emotional competencies, including the inability to handle interpersonal problems, unsatisfactory team leadership during times of difficulty or conflict, or the inability to adapt to change or elicit trust. Those are some big reasons too, and why emotional intelligence is so important. 75% of careers are derailed because people do not have the emotional intelligence skills to handle difficult things, conflict, trust building. Trust building may not be so much difficult as critical. And so, difficult things, critical things, certainly stress related types of situations that we get into. Here's one by Daniel Goleman. And if you know anything about emotional intelligence, he's one of the original researchers, and this has been his life's work. Here's what he says: as much as 80%, that's 80, as much as 80% of adult success comes from EQ, which is emotional quotient, or the measure of emotional intelligence. So here's another one by a gentleman by the name of Dave Lennick. He's the executive VP, American Express. Only through managing our emotions can we access our intellect and our technical competencies. An emotionally competent person performs better under pressure. And I know that to be true. I've seen that in the work that I do. Well, the next quote, and there's a lot of these quotes, but there's a reason I'm reading these to you. I don't want you to just take my word for why emotional intelligence is important. I want you to hear it from people that are well respected, who have seen it at work, in lives, personal lives, in workplace situations. So let me read you the next one. Again, this one's from Daniel Goleman. In general, the higher a position in an organization, the more emotional intelligence matters. For individuals in leadership positions, 85%, 85% of their competencies were in the emotional intelligence domain. These are for successful leaders. Here's another one by really a good friend of mine, Josh Friedman, who is the CEO of 6 Seconds, one of the largest emotional intelligence communities in the world. And it's a little long, but I really like the way Josh put this together. Emotional intelligence is a way of recognizing, understanding, and choosing how we think, feel, and act. It shapes our interactions with others and our understanding of ourselves. It defines how and what we learn. It allows us to set priorities. It determines the majority of our daily actions. Research suggests it is responsible for as much as 80% of the success in our lives. That's a great quote, and one that I believe very firmly in. Here's another one. We cannot tell what may happen to us in the strange medley of life, but we can decide what happens in us, how we take it, what we do with it. And that is what really counts in the end. That was Joseph Newton. Now, these are just a few quotes that speak to the role and the importance of emotional intelligence in our lives. The common theme: that emotional intelligence is the skill set that is most predictive of success and satisfaction in our lives. So I mentioned that emotional intelligence as a science has been around for decades, right? Well, the understanding of it has come a long way since the original research. We know that very specific parts of the brain, what we call the limbic system, generate emotions, and we know how that works. And frankly, I'm looking at a diagram, but it's very simple. Something happens. Step number one, something happens. Number two, that data enters into our brain. Step number three, the experience of whatever it was that happened, we we feel it. That experience is felt in our brain. And then it can go one of two ways. We can react immediately, which tends to be unhealthy, not as intentional, or we can recognize what we're feeling. We can identify what it's saying to us, and then we can respond, which is a more thoughtful and intentional way. And there's a lot of neuroscience that's going on there, and I'm not going to get deep into that right now. But just to understand, something happens, it enters our brain processes it, our brain feels the experience, and then it chooses a pathway. Do I immediately react, or do I try to better understand what it is? Where did it come from? What are the emotions that I'm having? That's where the emotional intelligence skill sets come in and really help us so that I can respond for a better outcome. And now, recent research and case studies have confirmed that EQ, or emotional intelligence, the measure of emotional intelligence, is 2 to 4 times more predictive of success than IQ. It doesn't replace IQ, but it's more impactful on our success and satisfaction. And you could go to Harvard Business Review or Forbes and really just about any major publication, whether it's just for life or whether it's for work, and you're going to see a lot of material on emotional intelligence and how important that is to our life and work. So let's start to break this down. To really cut through the noise out there about what is emotional intelligence, why is it important, I'm going to step by step walk us through that over the next several weeks. And we're going to start at a high level, like we're doing right now. There are different models of emotional intelligence, but the most utilized model has 5 components. These 5 categories of emotional intelligence contribute to a person's ability to manage their emotions and interact effectively with other people. So here's a brief overview of each of those. Number 1, the first category, self-awareness. This involves understanding one's own emotions, strengths, weaknesses, values, and motives. People who are self-aware are conscious of how their feelings affect them, affect other people, and affect their job performance. The second category is self-regulation. Now, this refers to the ability to control or redirect disruptive emotions and impulses and adapt to changing circumstances. It involves managing one's emotional reactions and responding to situations in a socially acceptable manner. Here's the third one, motivation. In the context of emotional intelligence, motivation is a passion to work for reasons beyond money or status. It's about being driven to achieve for the sake of achievement. It includes setting goals and showing initiative and readiness to act on opportunities. Number 4 is empathy. And I'm sure most of us have heard that term, empathy. This is the ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people. It involves being aware of others' feelings and their needs and considering them in decision making. So it's not sympathy. I'm sorry, you're going through that. It's horrible, awful. But empathy is really getting in the trenches with the other person and understanding what they're feeling and what their perspective is. Empathy is crucial in managing relationships, listening, and relating to others. If you don't have empathy for somebody, you're probably not going to listen to them very well. And if we took an inventory of the people we treat that way in our lives, it might be an inventory that we wouldn't want to look at very long, because I think we all do that. The last one, number 5, social skills. This category includes a wide range of skills such as effective communication, managing relationships, inspiring others, and inducing desirable responses from other people. People with strong social skills are often team players who can manage disputes. They are excellent communicators, masters at building and maintaining relationships and trust. So those components all work together to enable individuals to recognize, understand, and manage their own emotions while also empathizing with other people and influencing the emotions of other people, not in a manipulative way, but in a positive way for mutually beneficial outcomes. So now we can take this foundational level of emotional intelligence and the 5 major categories, and keeping those in mind, we can see how emotional intelligence touches every part of our lives. Every decision we make, every action we take, every interaction with other people is going to be impacted by our own emotions. Even if you think you're a very logical and rational person. As a matter of fact, I work with a lot of people, engineers, scientists, people that are in IT, and these are very rational, logical people. But I can show them how their emotions are impacting their decisions, their actions. If you dive deep enough, you can see those things. As a matter of fact, remember that quote earlier? Only through managing our emotions can we access our intellect and our technical competence. An emotionally competent person performs better under pressure. But that first part of that quote is so important. If your emotions are getting in the way, then you cannot access your higher cognitive and technical skills. I've seen it over and over. It is an absolute mainstay of people that are in burnout. Burnout is an emotional state. And people who are in burnout, yes, they're having a lot of emotions, but they're also not as capable because they cannot access their intellect, their technical competencies, those higher level cognitive skills. So now you can see why emotional intelligence skills are so critical to living our best lives and doing our best work. Emotions can either be derailers that disrupt and take us off course, or they can be accelerators. We can actually use emotions as a strategic resource if we enhance our emotional intelligence competencies and skills. Now, if you want to dive deeper into that, there's a blog article on our website, eqfit.org, that is called The Secret to Great Soft Skills. That goes much deeper into how all of this comes together in a practical way. And we'll get to that in a few weeks. We'll talk more about those things, but I want to keep it at this kind of entry level today. The title of the article that I wrote on the blog for this week, which is the essence of what I'm doing right now, basically asks the question, what's in it for me? And I think that's a very appropriate question to ask. Why should somebody put time into developing their emotional intelligence skills and competencies? Well, we face challenges in our world today that demand more of people than ever before. That is a reality. The question is, will you have the internal resources to meet those challenges and achieve what you desire? The answer to that question could be yes, through developing your emotional intelligence competencies and skills. What is the outcome of that? So this is the what's in it for me. Greater agility, and that includes mental agility. I'm not talking as much physical agility here, although that you're going to have more energy too if you enhance your emotional intelligence competencies and skills. But greater mental agility, increased resilience, better decision making, being more intentional more often. Less of that, I wish I'd have done it differently. You'll have greater internal motivation, which is an internal resource we all need for when times get tough and when we're under pressure. You'll be able to approach life with more optimism. And I'm not talking a fake optimism. I'm talking a realistic sense of looking to the future with hope and possibility. You'll be better able to navigate your own emotions in highly charged emotional times and the emotions of other people. You'll have an increased awareness of how you're impacting other people and then how to get better outcomes out of that by being more intentional, by using those emotional intelligence skills to get better outcomes. Now, if this sounds like a journey you'd like to take, we do have resources at our website, eqfit.org, that you can go to. We've got blogs, we've got podcast episodes that are all free. We have courses you can take. Go to our store and check those out. The one that I would recommend would be the Understand Your Own EQ course. That's a very foundational course that was created specifically to help people start this journey. And even if you're well on the journey to emotional intelligence skill development, there'll be a lot in that course that will be beneficial. So back to our question, what's in it for you? Very simply, a more successful and satisfying life. Does that sound good to you? Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you have any questions about this week's episode, or maybe a suggestion for future episodes you'd like us to explore, please contact us through our website at eqfit.org. For more information and inspiration, connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube at EQFit.